Session 7, the topic's line breaks and enjambments. First thing I want you to do is to go get a poem of yours, that one that isn't working necessarily, that you have workshopped and you're still not satisfied with it. It can be also a new poem. It's really up to you, but it has to be about 8 lines long or so. It can be longer. Should at least use about 8 lines. And then I want you to make a copy of that poem and take out all of the end line, all of the line breaks, all of the stanza breaks. It should, when you're done, it should look like one long line, one long piece of prose. So pause me for a minute and then go do that. Okay, so line endings are basically, line breaks are of 2 kinds. There's an end stop line and an enjambed line. An end stop line just means that there is a period at the end of the line. So this is a poem about a cat, period. And I call them end stop, end stop. If you write the poem, this is a poem about a cat who ate a rat, and there's a line break after cat, and then it continues on to who ate a rat. That's an enjambed line. That's all, just 2, end stop and enjambed. So rules for line breaks. Can you break these? Sure, but with intent, once you know what the rules, I will put a link at the bottom in the description, so you don't have to write these down, but here they are. And never end a poetic line on an article. A, and, the. Never end a line on a conjunction. And, or, so, nor, to, etc. Never end a line on a pronoun, especially like I, me, his, yours, personal pronouns. Don't end a line on a preposition. If you need to end a line, it's better not to even start a line on a preposition, although you can do that. But don't end a line on a preposition, rewrite the line instead. And at an end line, so what you're left with are nouns and verbs. Use unusual nouns if you can. So instead of just cat, use tiger, stripey, or something else. Actually, better than that. Like I said, you can't break them. So here's an example. Gwendolyn Brooks has a poem called We Real Cool. This is just from that. We real cool. We left school. We lurk late. We strike straight. We sing sin. We thin gin. We jazz June. We die soon. It ends on a pronoun, each line, the we. But obviously, it's a powerful poem because all of them end that way. It's about the we, and it's extremely rhythmical. So yes, you can break it, but use it for what it do it on purpose, not without intent or without knowledge. So this goes back to your poem. What I want you to do with your prose that you have now is to apply those rules that I just gave you. Don't end on a article, conjunction, pronoun, or preposition. Just start with those. Take the prose that you've created from your poem and redo the line breaks. There are 2 things that will happen. First, you'll get staggered lines probably. And second, you'll all of a sudden see words that you don't need at all, actually. Often conjunctions, for example, are unnecessary in a line of poetry. We tend to think in prose lines because we have so much more training with prose through our school years than we do with poetry. But when you come to transform a thought or an experience into poetry, it's perfectly okay not to follow the prose rules. So there will be times when you just want 2 images to butt up against each other without the prose necessarily adding the conjunction to join them. They're joined because they're next to each other on the page. You don't need to add an and, for example. That was the gist of the session. What we did do is look at some words, some poems, and I would encourage you to do the same, is to look up some published poems and look at their line endings. Just read down the last word of each line as if it were a poem in and of itself, and look at where the energy is in those lines. So for, you'll have, if you have a lot of lines that was, to, I, she, then there's not a lot of energy held in those line endings. But if you have a poem, for example, that ends with night, lost, shadows, or a repetition like here from Williams, Carlos Williams, depends, wheel, rain, white, chickens, barrow. Those are ending words. The ending words of a line should give you a sense, a visual or image sense. So it can be visual or auditory or tactile. It can be a taste. It should give you a place in the world to get sensual information from. That's what you want in your poem.